Zapman just gets jumped on in the middle of a fight. Maybe he's going to be the one that dies there, and then the Shinto comes up big, right? It is a really good, I think, dichotomy for the Leviathans as a whole, that they've got a great front line, they've got 2 good carries, and I think the linchpin of it, like we always talk around it, I put Panatom in both roles, which is really weird to think of. Like it does a really good setup jungle style, while also being a good carry sometimes for this team, and I think that opens them up to a lot of capabilities that we don't get to see out of every single team. And because of that, you get Panatom being very proactive in helping out either Shinto or Zap stand out, or helping out Yarkor and Rongyu in terms of peeling and making sure that those carries get to stay alive a little longer.
And Gore, I do think it's important we throw some love the Oni Warriors way, especially their carries as well, where Dardes and Vote did not have the easiest start to the year. They've had some rough transitions. I think Vote has been playing a lot better here as of late. I think Dardes, though, specifically as well, identified in picks and bans for sure, but has also, I think, started to feel more comfortable. This team in general, the Oni Warriors, have started to feel more comfortable picking Dardes-esque picks, right? You're not forcing the meta onto Dardes. We saw Zhang Kui last week. Hera's been a pick. The Morgan has been good here for Dardes, and so shifting to gods that are still good, but maybe not the top of the tier list, things that make more sense for Dardes, I think is something that the Oni Warriors have transitioned to that has helped them look a little bit better.
And it's interesting because looking at it, like just their first picks for the Warriors, they've done Erlang Shin, Yamoja, Sylvanas, Artio. They've only had 4 games where they've been first pick, and for the most part, they haven't focused specifically that mid laner, which I think is ideal because you look at it maybe a little later on, they aren't worried about it. Maybe it's something that comes in for the Leviathan's second phase of bans, where they start slamming some mid laners. You know, we like to see against specifically the Warriors. The Morgan is a very high top ban up against them. But you know, you've got looking at it. What is this? Aphrodite. You've got your Heras. You've got Discordia. There's so many other mid laners that you have to worry about that aren't even just the meta mid laners
Discordia,
up against them. And I think that opens up a lot of golden opportunities for the Warriors.
And this Oni Warriors team, it kind of continues as we see the picks roll through. Neoma has been an interesting pick ban strategy to discuss because you look at picks like the Kuzenbo, and early on in this phase, Neil was playing the Kuzenbo and was just obnoxious on that pick, wasn't he? The ability for Neil to walk in and wanting to be there, the type of pick that wants to be locked in the back line, just looks so good for Neoma, and then you saw him on a pick like a Sylvanas, where maybe feels a little bit more uncomfortable. Geb, the style of pick where you find your way into the backline, a big Cataclysm sets up a good fight for your team. So good start for the Oni Warriors. And I wondered when the hat would drop here with Ullr, because so much recently we've seen Ullr drop to the second wave of bans, and sometimes not get picked or banned. That's not true. Not get picked is really what I mean, because he falls down to the second wave of bans. I wondered when we would start to see Ullr first pick priority. Maybe it's in a situation where Zapman is the one piloting it, plus Nike, a good start for the Leviathans.
Yeah, and honestly, it's like Ullr's tied with the Raijin so far this phase, and the Terra, surprisingly enough, for the Leviathans in terms of play. Like, Zapman loves this pick, and I think as long as it is something that can be viable, he's going to lean towards it. And we've kind of seen the damage it can do in the right scenarios. He has 100-0'd people in a lot of these fights. And I think it's, again, an interesting position to be in because, like you said, for a lot of these teams, it's fallen off the radar. Not entirely.
No.
But enough that you're not too
You're picking
stressed
other
about
stuff first,
it. Yeah,
right.
you're thinking like Izanami's right now been pretty big, and conversations like that. Heimdall as well is still kind of in that conversation. But with Raijin kind of being a lightning rod when you're playing the Leviathans, I think that opens up the pick for Zap to say, look, you need to get whatever is best in slot, just blanket statement, and take that in. Yeah, there's going to be some matchups that are maybe a little more rough for you. Yeah, maybe that's something that they're going to be able to do on the Warriors. But if you do well with it, then you are going to be able to set up your team for success.
Wow, I mean, this is an Oni Warriors-esque draft, isn't it? Really, I mean, the Morgan is kind of where that pivot comes in. But talk about team fight already through the first 3 for the Oni Warriors. You've got a Geb with a great Cataclysm, a Hunbats with the Fear No Evil. And so you've got Lock in place and then Disperse plus damage. So setup fantastic for the Oni Warriors right now. And then you've got another one of those 2 things, if you want it, with the Morgan out of the mid lane here for Dardes. And so now what you need to look at, Gore, if I'm not incorrect, is follow up on that setup with your last 2 picks. So you've got someone in the mid lane. Your Hunter's going to be very important to pick around that. And then someone for the solo lane there as well. Because setup-wise, it feels like the Oni Warriors are pretty comfortable for their first 3.
Yeah, I like this draft a lot for the top 3. I mean, the Morrigan has been, again, one of the most banned gods versus the Warriors, but it's also been doing really well for them. Admittedly, they've only played it twice, but they've got wins on it each time.
Yep.
And it has been, we had been talking about the mid lane earlier, but that is maybe one of the biggest powerhouses. I'm really curious to see, like, Morgan Le Fay jumping back into the fray. We've seen her now 2 games in a row. Lost, I believe, when Hurry was playing her, but not due to Hurry specifically. He had some really good moments. I'm really interested to watch how this goes for Shinto, because this is a pick that can do a whole ton on her own, can save herself, deal a lot of damage. And in the middle of the fray, you know, looking at it, we were talking about it earlier, maybe is the one dying after all of that setup damage to just let Zapman run through and deal whatever needs to be left done. But it also is interesting because with that Nike still being something that could go solo or jungle, I think this puts them in a good spot to at least pivot something if they need to for Panatom, but also get a really good pick for their support wherever wrong you. I wouldn't be surprised if that's their lock-in right here.
Oni Warriors are thinking that this is a solo lane pick. In the last 6 games, we've seen 1 Nike for the Leviathans, and it did go solo, but still very much flexible as far as where that can go. And Gore, you're spot on there. Sylvanas, a pick that has been first picked a couple of times here as of late, falls down to the second wave of picks, the first pick of that second wave for the Leviathans. So you're going to leave that last bit of question mark up to the last pick here, whereas the Oni Warriors have to show their full hand. And Guan Yu, the pick for Neek out of the solo lane, a pick that maybe caters to his play style pretty well.
I like Guan Yu just in general. Like, I think he's just a fun god to be able to play. Maybe not so much when you're on the receiving end. Talu Assault is a lot of damage, a lot of prot shred, really helpful up against something like a Nike, but you also have a lot of good stuns. When I look at the team fight for the Oni Warriors, it's nuts. I mean, you've got Guan ult, Geb ult, Hunbat's ult, and that's 3 distinct, fantastic setups that are so coveted in Smite that are going to be able to get a lot done for you.
Mika, decent area, but then you can have a second one of any of those that you decide to with Dardes on this the Morrigan. And, you know, they were giving us, you know, yes, the Morgan Le Fay, it's going to be annoying to go through. For some reason, I always consistently mix up mounted archery and cavalry charge for no reason, because only one of them uses a bow, so only one of them would have archery. But that's going to be a fun one for me in general, just for the combination of these 4 gods all in one game.
Dardes in some trouble in mid up against Shinto, lose out on a lot of his HP here, mostly to the minion wave, but maybe is able to work his way back and start to heal himself back up. But that is not a great start for the Morrigan.
Not going to be fun for him, and not going to be fun for Hardcore over here on this right side. We don't see a whole lot of Guan Yu. First time this phase he's picked up.
Disruption, they've got all this pick potential as well with Dardes on the Morrigan. I think that the Warriors have come away with a very, very strong draft here, and it's not as if it's all engage. They've got good counter engage as well. So even if the Leviathans do pull a lead, how do you run past a Cataclysm, a Fear No Evil, Stone Shields, and chase down all these horses?
Nika, who was bullying Hardcore earlier on, now that Hardcore's got some safety, he'll punch it right back. And a teleport in by Panatom puts the Leviathans on the board for first blood. A nice little answer right back to this Guan Yu. A little bit of healing on both ends of the board. You have the Guan Yu for your self-sustain of the Warriors, and well, Kivo, he needs to go ahead and jump away. And then you got self-sustain out of Rong Yu with the Sylvanas. And then it's also a meditation coming out from both of them for even more sustain. So that's going to have to be something that will need to be answered by both these teams as the game goes on.
Very large resurgence recently. But as of right now, Leviathan sitting 1,000 gold in the lead off of just First Blood. Macro play favoring the Chaos.
Neil with a nice shield. Harpy will be secured by the 2 of them. Vote gets pulled in a second time, but a second time Neil has that shield. Attempted body blocks, but Vote's going to need some help with his own body blocks. Decent damage by Zapman. Axe toss comes out. That one will get the beads. Vote, he'll get hit by the fadeaway hail of arrows, but it's Cuvo Fred on the way. Zapman might be the one in danger, but Cuvo's not 5. No ultimate available to him just yet. So instead, it'll just be some damage fired back. But Panatom, he's level 5. Could be engagement over, but Rongyu finally off the mark on that pull. Vote will get to live to see another day unless Panatom goes over this wall. He'll be spotted out. Cuvo Fred will be the one who meets him, and Cuvo on the wrong side of the fight. Panatom puts another one in the coffin. 2 up for the Leviathans.
Man, the duo lane of the Leviathans are clearly having themselves a great match here as Vote takes a little bit more damage. The chase is on. Rongyu finds him.
Another pull. This one onto Neil Ma, but no further follow-up. But ultimate out of Rongyu gets some damage. But Neil will live, and so will Vote. Vote standing next to that spawn. I don't think he realized he was getting chunked away by the basics that those spawns throw out. It's not a 100 gold investment. Make sure that he gets a very nice early power spike, some cooldown reduction, some pen, and a little bit of power. But it's a double cataclysm, or it's a cataclysm on 2 right in the mid lane, and ultimate out of Cuvo. Fred pushes Shinto and Rongyu away from each other, and Rongyu with no ult and now no life. He falls down. Dardes credited towards the kill. Panatom and Shinto want to continue the chase, but there's not much chase to be had. Neil can roll himself right out.
Great engagement from Neilma on follow-up CC. That's what Gore was talking about on the desk earlier. You are able to beads one.
Very small that I've noticed out of this Morgan Le Fay from Shinto is he's been using a lot more decoy versions of that sigil than previously before. It seemed like, you know, back when she first came through, it's pretty much just that fear. And it's a great one to have. The fear is such a strong CC. Then we saw a little bit of the slow field. If you want to go for a disengage, you leave a giant area. You don't want to walk through, but we'll hold that. One. Neil goes in with the blink, and it's a fear no evil. Make that a second one. Shinto has absolutely nowhere to go. The triple ultimate holds him down. Neil, he'll take some damage from Rongyu. Panatom dives in with the set, but he's not getting too much kills just yet. He's getting a lot of healing back. Maybe he'll be able to find Dardes. Good stone shield, but no further CC or knock-up to stop him. Panatom does get hit up in the tower. It'll be a return kill, this one for Neil Ma, but it's a 2-for-1 trade, and maybe more if Cuvo can find Rongyu. Vote going for the 1v1 against Zapman, gets the stun with the EI Jutsu. Vote gets the solo kill up against the Z-Man and puts 3 up for the Warriors.
Man, Zapman takes the 1v1, should have been helping out his boy. He would have got some help in return himself, but the Oni Warriors are able to find a lot of value inside of that engagement.
That one little ward right there above that red camp was giving the Leviathans so much information specifically against Dardes. Now that that has faded away, maybe a little bit easier here for the Warriors to start something up. Oni Fury already started, now down to about half health. Ward dropped by Rongyu just to keep the vision. Pull off the mark. Rongyu doesn't find anybody. Goes for the ultimate. Only hits Neil. Narkor goes in. It's a fear no evil. Oni Fury goes the way of the Warriors. And again, another quick disengage. The fight is over. The Fury is over. And the Warriors want nothing except to get out of here.
Neilma in first, burn beads. If someone does beads, Cuvo Fred in after, and then Cuvo Fred 2. I'm talking about Dardes in after that. So it seems like it is always going to be Neil kind of starting off these engagements.
Fire Giant started by the Leviathans. Maybe it's just a bait to get anybody forward, but it's down to half health and not much response yet. Dardes is here at the front line. Nika goes in on his own cavalry charge to jump in and find the back line. It's the Leviathans who get the Fire Giant, but how will the fight after go? Cuvo is low. Zapman finds Dardes, and Zapman's still looking for more. Nika and Neil Ma in the middle of everybody, and it's Shinto who picks him up. It's a double kill for Zapman and a double for Shinto. Can they get the full house of it? No, it's Panatom who takes the last one in a quick and immediate deicide by the Leviathans, plus that Fire Giant.
The Oni Warriors have the team fight. They've got all the abilities they need. Everything was up there, but they used every single one of their AoE CC abilities in an attempt to steal the Fire Giant. I'm talking 2 Fear No Evils on the Fire Giant pit itself, so by the time the fight was grouped up, by the time the Leviathans were legitimately 5 stacked on top of each other, there was nothing left in the tank for the Warriors to play around, and now the Leviathans, with 15 seconds left on the nearest respawn, Fire Giant on 5 and healthy, could just walk into the Titan room.
Neil Ma down to 10 seconds on his cooldown. Dardes for 12, and this could be the end of the game with just one small team fight. The Leviathans are able to clutch out this win and take game number 1
through that game. Hey, here's our CC. Here's what we're capable of doing. The problem is you've got 2 hyper carries on the other side and 2 hyper carries that can do a really good job if they are let off the leash, even slightly. I think we got to see a lot from Panatom early on. Again, some really good fights, I think, from the Warriors to prolong the game a little more than what we are used to seeing. But it just did feel like a not necessarily inevitable downside, but something that was bound to happen when you play the Warriors. Of course, Nika had even admitted it during the pregame that, yeah, we think they're playing the best Smite in the league right now, and this is just a good showcase for it. You get really good fights from them, especially as you had mentioned around the Fire Giant, where things really start to, because I mean, if you look at it, what was it, 4-3 going into that fight? It's 4K gold. It's not like a huge lead for the Leviathans. It does just feel like one huge fight. You get Zapman popping off in it. You have Panatom doing a ton of damage. The whole team just collapses. And admittedly, what should have been a Warriors maybe win considering the ults they had. But that just goes to show that you can't lapse, even for a second, up against the Leviathans.
Yarkor goes 0-0-6. James Bond's younger brother here in this one, 006.
He likes his martinis stirred, not shaken.
Stirred, not shaken, right. And then James Bond comes in and ruins everything and flips things around for the bartender. Look, this was a slow burn of a game. Will the Oni Warriors pivot things up? Will you put more focus on Zapman? Will you put less focus on Shinto? That I'm not necessarily excited about, and I think that goes back to a previous conversation, Gore, where this Leviathans team, the carries, the jungler, the solo lane, the support, everyone's playing so well right now. Who can you ban?
That's actually the perfect pivot into what I was going to say here.
You're welcome.
Which is that the Leviathans have, especially with Zap playing in a meta where things are really leaning into his style, they have 5 win conditions. Their worst case scenario, if somebody's doing bad, is they've got 4 win conditions on their team. And I'm just looking at it, like their top player has, going into this week, it was Yarkor with a 6.2 KDA. The lowest KDA on their team coming into this week was a 3.2 for Wrong You. The
That's
most
good.
deaths they had coming into this week on their team, 23 for Panatom. After 3 weeks of play, he's got 23 deaths. He's also got 6 First Bloods coming into this week. Like, it's just, they have so much that builds them up and puts them together that as a team, they are very intrinsically difficult to deal with. And now that we've started to see this wide variety in their picks and bans that have really been leaning forward for them, it makes things just so much more difficult. And I don't even think, like, the Warriors look pretty decent for a lot of that game. There's one really big fight, the Leviathans win it, they win the game. And I think that is the case. A lot of these teams, we've already seen it with 4 others,
Yep.
just don't know how to deal with them because there's too much to deal with. Not just in the picks and bans, like you said, but even just in field. I mean, what are you going to do? Hey, we dealt with Yarkor. Cool. Now Wrong You stepping up. Panatom stepping up. Shinto stepping up. Cool. We dealt with 3 of them. As long as a front line and a carry is alive for the Leviathans, they've got more lifeblood than some of the other teams we've seen.
Yeah, the Oni Warriors will pivot up a little bit here with their bans. They take away the Geb Gore, which I think is a nice little swap here for the Oni Warriors team, and they're able to give themselves the Uller in that first pick slot. So Zapman not going to get the run back on the Uller this time around. The Leviathans are going to stick with the Nike, though. Apparently that's been working for them, and they want to stick with that recipe.
And I'd said this last game, Terra's one of their most picked gods. Wouldn't be surprised now that she's slipped through if they maybe try to scoop her up for Wrong You, especially since there's not a Guardian already available for the Warriors. This is a good pickup that the Warriors would be able to run away with as well. So it's a kind of dual-sided blade, right?
Yeah.
Hey, we get something good for us that we know we can be successful with, and we get to punch you down a little bit. We've already banned the Emoja. That was gone last time, but now that the Geb's gone, we're controlling that role a little bit better. Good news is that support's got a lot of options right now, so it's not like it's the end of the world.
No, Terra's been 3 out of the last 6 picks for Wrong You, and it has won 2 of those 3 games. And so the Leviathan support plenty happy with the pick he was able to get there. Umoja, Odin, and Artio all taken away in the first 3 bans now for the Leviathans. And this is an interesting spot for the Oni Warriors. You can kind of further double down on taking something away from Shinto if you're the Oni Warriors, if you want to pick your mid laner here in the top 3. You don't necessarily love Gore maybe having to show both of your carries early on in your draft.
Yeah.
But you are able to do so, because on one side, the Leviathan's taking away a couple of the supports, a couple of the solo laners. They already get their solo and support locked in, while 4 in that category have been taken away. And at least for one of the last 2 picks here for the Oni Warriors, the King Arthur will be the selection.
Now, the thing that's really interesting to me, and I actually agree with you, because maybe not getting both of your carries here, I think you've got so much flexibility in mid that that's something you should work with and recognize that they could ban off 5 mid laners and still not necessarily hit something that Dardes is going to be able to play and play up at that high level. But it also is opening up the conversation for what gods have been very kind to the Warriors in mid lane. And when you look at it, like Hera, unfortunately, 3 picks, very, very coveted pick for them, but they've lost 3 times with it, so it's not going to be the hard carry they want. They don't really have any picks like that. This is just phase 3 that I'm looking at, but ultimately Discordia, Uller, when you're looking at damage dealt over time in the game and what they're going to be able to provide, along with a King Arthur as well, this is a good trio to start things off that is going to be very adept at controlling team fights, at least just through sheer damage.
How about this for the Leviathan score? We wondered if you're maybe picking something away from Shinto, if you're the Oni Warriors, by taking this Discordia. The Morrigan's still left open, so none in the last 6 for Shinto have been on Morrigan. But we do have some data in the past of Shinto playing this pick, and it has looked pretty good in the past. I think Shinto has done more than enough to prove that we at least need to give him his due credit when it comes to picking something a little bit newer and a little bit more unique. One of the best in the league at playing Smite, playing mid in general, and so I think he deserves at least my initial I'll trust you on this one.
And it's funny because I feel like we've seen a lot of games, well, not like a lot, but like a good amount of games of Shinto on the Morgan. He's only played 3. This is his 4th one.
Really?
But it's done decently well. I mean, 2 out of 3 when the numbers are that low, you know, like, hey, your percentage, I can say
That's
it.
right.
You've got a 66.6% win rate on the Morrigan if you're the Leviathans. That sounds great. You've only won with it twice.
Sure.
Doesn't maybe sound as great. But it has been something, like you said, that has been showcased to be a really good pocket pick for Shinto, really adept, and I like the way that it fits his style. One, he can turn into any of those 3 picks that I just highlighted on the Warriors and how well they're going to be able to play. But also, you get a second Terra ult if you want it. You can get another big power
remember,
burst.
Gore, Charybdis available. And we talked about this on the waiting room. I don't know if the Charybdis is going to get locked in here. There is some viability to it. We've talked about why we might see it, why some hunters do like it, why some hunters don't like it, how it feels good, how it feels bad to play against. There's been swirling speculation about whether or not we would see it, and we do!
Wow.
We do see it. Charybdis ends up getting locked in here for the Leviathans, and I think that's what we got to talk about at this point. For people who weren't able to tune into the SPL waiting room, Gore, run it down here a little bit with me. We know that 3, the Whirlpool, is maybe the ability that makes this kit shine.
She's got an angler fish for an arm. It's pretty cool. No, she she can do a lot.
That is
and I think
what matters.
when we talked about it earlier, that there was a lot of concept and conversation about the fact that if you're ahead, you're going to have a pretty clean game no matter what.
Cool
You've
eyes.
got good clear. The problem that always comes down with her is the fact that most of your abilities are very short range.
Shorter
Like you are
range, right.
going to be getting hit by autos before you're throwing those out there. But there are a lot of opportunities. I'm really curious about the Uller matchup. That's going to be
Look, we have
probably not that fun.
Well, we
He's
have-
got nothing but range. She's got limited range.
And there's now an Awelish on the enemy team that doesn't feel great for Uller. Well, look, at this point we have no data on any of the Charybdis matchups in the SPL. We're going to get
Because
our
we
first
haven't seen
data
any
point
yet.
on
Yeah.
one of them, right?
And I imagine in lane we'll see a little bit more priority towards that first ability.
Yeah, the first ability is your primary clear, but at this point, if you're just hitting like minions inside of the jungle camps rather, yeah, you want that second ability, not only for the protection shred, but also because it just very quickly applies that damage. Worth noting that Charybdis has like 30% attack speed just baked into her kit through the passive as well, so once Zatman has that stacked up, might have a slight advantage going forward, but I don't have very much data on what Charybdis is able to do on her own, and maybe Neilma won't really be on the
right
receiving
now,
end.
Wrong You and Zapman are going aggressive against it. A quick beads out of
get
Zapman,
him.
and Vote is trading out
Wait, what?
to make sure that Neil can make it on out of there alive. So the meditation burned by Wrong You, the beads burned by Zapman. They're the ones who probably come off on the worst end of that trade, because for all of that, they only get the horrific emblem out of the Warriors.
Yeah, it looked like Zapman didn't find the knock-up off the third ability there. Unfortunate that Neilma is able to just limp his way away from that one, at least cost the horrific from the Oni Warriors, but I was fully expecting
Charge it
first
up
one.
to get a little bit more value. You can quick fire depending on what you go, though you do expend some of that tide meter in your passive to use that second ability. He
maximum
actually
too.
hasn't even elected to go into his first ability, which is one strong clear option. Well, over on the right side, it's Hardcore losing his blue buff from an invade by Cuvo and Nika. Panatom is here, level 4 on the Awilish. He'll blink right past to find Cuvo Fred, but it's
Rip.
Hardcore who's in danger. Nika, in his little 1v1, will take him down and put the Oni Warriors up for first blood.
Nika now in a little bit of trouble, needs some help from Cuvo Fred, who does make the
Good
rotation
taunt.
in. Nice taunt. Might be enough to turn it, and it is. Cuvo Fred, by the
How?
skin of his teeth, survives his engagement. Oni Warriors, 2-0.
Nika both with a kill to their name as they were able to take down Hardcore and Panatom in that earlier 2v2 skirmish by Blue.
Yeah, and it's only about 1,000 gold separating these two squads right now, as Zatman forced to use the beads very early on, but returns a fair bit of poke in his own right. I mean, that is decent damage output from Charybdis' abilities alone, and Vote, although does get to maintain his relic, has to put some respect on the damage output that Zatman has.
Now it's a 3v3. Nika's in the middle, gets caught by the wall out of Wrong You. Doesn't get stunned. It's a leap from
Nice.
Hardcore, finds 2. Some good damage with the barrier. Gets the Earthen Fury from Wrong You to fire some damage back. Nika's in trouble and is only delaying the inevitable with his own ultimate, but now with another rotation in, Hardcore gets some good damage off, takes down Nika. Cuvo Fred leaps away, but Panatom pulls him right back in, and Neil Moss stuck in the middle of 4. We'll find the leap over the wall, but there's 2 chasing him right back. Shinto de-transforms and Hardcore eats an apple. That might just be enough for Neil to make it out.
Yeah, nobody else from the Leviathans was willing to walk through and take
Oh,
that damage,
no.
but Neilma will de-transform here, and Yarkor, able to avoid the unruly magic procs from Dardes, is able to maintain his own life with sub 100 HP. I believe it was around 60 that he survived with there, and the Leviathan's able to turn it back around. Makes him the de facto master of it, and again, just here to learn. We'll see what the Z-Man can show us.
Hardcore not level 12 yet up against Nika once Nika goes back to base, and Vote here as well at level 12. We'll see what secondary relics they go towards. That man's not going to let Vote back all willy-nilly. Vote will turn a lot of damage right back at him. Ultimate comes out from Zap and Panatom, but a quick beach from Vote gets him away. But Rongyu is not as fortunate. 3 surrounding him will make sure to pick off the support. And Leviathans now tied down at the 3-3. And a Pyromancer started up by the Warriors. They are not leaving this man alone. Vote is just trying to go back to base. But Panatom wants that 1v1, and he will find it. No beads and no Aegis yet for Vote. He didn't have that chance to go back to base. A good pick there for Leviathans.
Gotta remember, man, it was Dardes that starts it off.
Yeah, we get to see from Dardes' perspective here, that kill in the mid lane. I mean, Rongyu just gets caught out. And it's weird to say, you know, he's inside of his own into the jungle, but 3 people rotate over him. They didn't even really need the third. It was pretty much just Dardes, and
it is going to be a true contention on this left-hand side. And with the tier 1 tower and duo being removed for the Oni Warriors, there's not many great places to retreat to. The Oni Warriors essentially have to run towards mid if they start to lose out on a fight.
Vote just got back in the lane, already has to use the Aegis off an engagement from Panatom and Rongyu, and Zapman here might make it a little bit worse, but Panatom gets poked out heavily by Vote. And Neil's rotation makes sure that his carry stays alive, but they burned that Aegis off of the Hunter, and they didn't have to really use all that much in the return fire from it. It looked like only an ultimate out of Rongyu.
Panatom used the Feather Step instantly to avoid an axe that was not headed his way, and unfortunately was too quick to find the damage proc off the Earth of Fury. So Rongyu's ultimate finds very little value, and the Oni Warriors, they pull the gold.
Gold started up down to half health. Cuvo at the front line to try and zone away Shinto. He'll catch him right out immediately. Shinto does have that transformation up. Zapman uses the ultimate, goes for it, but does not steal it away. Instead, it's just Neil getting stunned and burned down. A 1-kill trade, and the Warriors will take that every day of the week. Get rid of your support. Hey, it doesn't matter. We at least got that objective.
And finding themselves dead even in this match. Gold largely equal, only about 800 favoring the Oni Warriors. Experience still largely equal as well.
It's another trade that Oni Warriors, they get an objective, but the Leviathans, they're able to at least answer back with either a kill or a permanent objective of their own. They'd strip away tier 1, Nika diving under for Rongyu, and not enough juke boots for the support, and one too many abilities for Nika at his disposal. He'll take down Rongyu, so he'll fall for the 2nd time this game. Leviathans up in kills 5-4, but the Warriors up in gold about 1,000 so far here at the 15.5 minute, and Cuvo Fred steals away the speed from Panatom's. Gotta feel bad when the Cobra's Kiss steals that one away. Shinto tries to go in aggressively, gets a transformation, goes into the Nike, and an ultimate of his own, and that golden apple will poke away at that health shield while Panatom deals with Cuvo Fred. The real Hardcore has shown up, and a pull back in, an immediate ultimate from Hardcore, but it's not enough damage to take out Cuvo Fred. Instead, turning right back on Shinto with Neil showing up and putting him right back down.
Neil with that fantastic rotation catches Shinto out. Now Hardcore with no ultimate available is left in the inopportune position, forced to find some defense.
Zapman charging up the capsize, but he's not going to let it rip just yet. Nika will spot him out and force Zapman to walk back into the tier 1 tower the safe way.
Her own right. So even if Zapman isn't the beneficiary of all these abilities, he's at least setting up for everybody else. And when you're setting up for Panatom, who's sitting at 2-1-3 and has the rated edge, well, it doesn't feel so bad.
Magi's Blessing eats the tick from the axe, but Vote will use the beads and leap away. Now it's Panatom turned on as Neil rotates over, and Cuvo immediately in tow. Panatom doesn't have that bubble. Cuvo gets caught on the wall, and that might just be enough. Or Cuvo can go in for the blink, immediately drop the ultimate on Panatom and get his beads. Neil trying to turn around, and Zapman doing his best to fire some damage, but the poison spreads over to the Hunter, and the ultimate misses from Zapman, doesn't catch anyone. And the apple makes sure that Shinto gets locked down and cannot continue further in the fight.
The timing of that golden apple is so unfortunate for Shinto. The very second he transforms, gets slammed by Dardes and cannot leap to continue chasing that one out. And Rongyu, maybe he's stuck around a little too long. Nice root from Dardes.
We'll catch him out, but not enough to take him down. Nika will chase him out with the spin. Hardcore, he'll get caught in mid lane. And
too much.
That's half his health just from Vote alone. Neil gets a stun on the tail end and a leap in from Vote. He wants even more. A nice little axe toss there. We'll stun him out again, but Hardcore is falling low. He needs to find a way out. Neil will poke him out. Cuvo wants the kill, but a quick jump under the tower. Hardcore is out.
On Bumba Spears, and it's not a bad stat stick either, and that's why we see so many of these players going that way. It just speeds up Fire Giants, it speeds up Gold Furies, and with that being the general win condition, well, it helps you out there.
Zapman's safety is gone, has to use the Maw for CC immunity, but Cuvo doesn't care about CC immunity. It's all about the damage for him and the rest of the team, but a lot expended to try and take out this Hunter. Zapman uses both of those relics. Neil caught out here. He'll eat a stun and a little bit of damage, but tier 2 tower on the left side of the map goes down after that kill with Zap.
Slow rotation from the Leviathans. They decide that they don't get there in time to put up a fight inside of the tier 2 and instead try and pick Neil in the jungle. And well, try again. He's falling low.
He's going down. Panatom will yank him back in with that gravity surge. So they finally get something out of these fights, but they lose Zapman, both of his relics, a tier 2 tower, and a couple of blinks here by the Leviathans to try and grab that kill. Meanwhile, other side of the board, Nika and Cuvo, they use both of their blinks. They even use a horrific emblem there for Neil at the very tail end of that fight just to try and keep him alive and make sure they can go and secure that kill. It's an ultimate in from Hardcore. Dardes in danger, throws out the apple, but that's just going to tickle the health shield that Hardcore has built up. A quick stun by Nika, trying to keep him alive. A root by Dardes may have just been enough to keep him out of there. Dardes somehow squeaks by out of there.
Hardcore just off the mark with a leap, and now Cuvo Fred might be able to at least burn the Magi's off of Panatom. If he closes gap on a Shinto, might be able to find a kill in his own right. But as it stands, Leviathan's 5 strong. Neilma just now rejoining the map, can level up that Cal whenever he so chooses. We'll get to see the full value of Charybdis very soon. We haven't seen any of these game-changing ultimates as of yet, but it only takes one to open up an entire match, as exemplified in Game 1. Only took one fight for the Leviathans to win.
Neilma will start at the Fire Giant with this transformation. Hardcore and Wrong Yu are here. Panatom off to the side being dealt with by Cuvo Fred. Fire Giant down to half. Wrong Yu down to half. He's forced to dash away, but Hardcore is more than happy jumping in the middle of these fights. Vote is still focused on the Fire Giant, and they'll grab it away from them. Leviathans sneak out the Fire Giant. Cuvo Fred low, and Cuvo Fred may fall down here. Panatom is more than willing to make this chase, and he gets one. Shinto grabs another, and it's 2 down for the Oni Warriors. Vote forced to leap over the wall, and Hardcore can push him away. Nika now caught in the middle of 4. Nika with nowhere to go, slowed down by 1. On the double for Panatom.
That can't happen. The Leviathans steal it away with 92 damage from Hardcore's Ren, who legitimately just walks up. He made it easy for himself. It was Dardes using the beads to avoid the knockup, or not Dardes, rather. It was actually Vote, I believe, who uses the beads to avoid the knockup to try and secure the objective. Unsuccessful in doing so, and yet again, the Leviathans find themselves off the back of one fight, knocking on the door of the Titan.
But now there's 2 up here for the Warriors to try and defend and maybe slow it down and give some time for Neil to respawn. They'll seed this right side Phoenix. No way that they want to try and push up a fight against a 5-strong Fire Giant, all of them nearly full health. There's still a couple of towers that Leviathans can take off this map. Tier 2 and mid, though, not much longer for living, and maybe Dardes won't be much longer for living. That Ren, one more tick would have done it there, but Neil makes sure to get that stun and peels just enough for Dardes to live. Finally able to break that in, and we do get to see Hardcore not only steal that Fire Giant, but then the immediate fight afterward, Neil Ma just had nowhere to go, being pushed around and bullied by this Nike. And man, again, I'm going to say it every time I see barrier formation, just literally bullying people by pushing them against the wall, time and time again, an obnoxious god to deal with.
Yeah, Nike is just so hard to kill.
How do you walk past that?
You don't walk past that. You hope that you got your ultimate available so you can stun him out and then walk past it, but unfortunately for Nika, that's not the case. With the Oni Warriors, they say only one tower standing, only one place the Leviathans can go. They're setting up an ambush on the left-hand side.
I don't know if Cuvo got spotted out there because he was sitting just off to the side of the wall, but Shinto, he'll walk in lane and immediately use that stealth and walk himself out. The Warriors, they're waiting for a bait. They're waiting for that one player to step forward, but it might be 2. Hardcore and Wrong Yu at the backside of the fight. If they start this now, it's a long rotation, blink, and a full commit against Zapman immediately into the whirlpool to try and walk away. But Shinto has turned the fight against Vote. Zapman up in the ultimate, needs it just for the CC immunity, but will he get a stun or anything else after? Vote's the one in danger. Shinto bullying him out with Panatom here. That seals the deal for the Hunters. Zapman in the midst of 3. He'll fall down. Cuvo Fred makes it a 1-for-1 trade, so both Hunters now out in a quick retreat from the Warriors.
Great double stun on the tail end from Wrong Yu to try and elongate that fight, and finally Shinto and Panatom rejoin the team.
But Neilma gets knocked up and burned down. Shinto credited for the kill. It's 2 members of the Oni Warriors gone. Leviathans only losing out on their Hunter, but they may not need the Hunter for these sieges. That tier 2 tower shreds like paper.
Fire Giant should do a lot of the heavy lifting here, but not having Hunter will slow down this Phoenix a fair bit, is what I would have said had the Phoenix still been standing, but immediately stripped.
Cuvo picked up, not taken out just yet. He'll be able to walk away with his life for the moment. Nika will do his best job to zone the Leviathans out and make sure that there's no further engagement. Fire Giant, only a few seconds left, and that'll be the retreat call for the Leviathans. They got the deed done, though. They took that left side Phoenix.
They're not in a great position to put up a defense.
You know, with a god like Nike, it's something, you and I always talk about creating infinite space for this god. Well, Zapman created infinite time on this Charybdis because of all the points that you brought up there, just between the extended CC and damage immunity that she was able to have. Neil, though, he gets caught out here, takes a bit of poke. Yarkor will make sure to push Neil Ma just a little bit further back. With that barrier formation, he'll make sure to keep a little bit of his health bar at least up there for Hardcore. Fire Giant respawning. Leviathans have all the space they need to try and take this one, but the Warriors, with their Phoenix pushed out, they have a very limited time for how much longer they can defend against this objective.
Yeah, all they have to do, the Warriors that is hover nearby and allow Vote to try and attempt the steal or maybe shut down Zap.
Zapman low. Once he gets out of that whirlpool, he does not have much help, but nobody is focusing on Zapman. Nika
great ult.
Stunned down, a 2-man stun by Zapman. He's still living through it, but Nika finally takes him down. Now it's Neil and Dardes, and well, not much longer for Dardes, not much longer for Vote. Neil at a sliver of health will get burned down by Wrong U, and it's only Qvo left. A full side for the Leviathans. And with that left side Phoenix gone, they can just push right to the end.
Just so surprised to see the Oni Warriors say, yeah, we're putting up the defense right now. You guys don't have to start the Fire Giant. Not concerned about that. We're looking to fight beforehand. Maybe they're worried about that timer that you're talking about on this left-hand side Phoenix, but that's not the concern anymore. They should have been concerned for their own lives. Now, the Leviathans get to just walk in.
Leviathans, even without their Hunter, they don't necessarily need it. They've got more than enough damage to push right in with the minions there. Backdoor protections on the Titan are gone. The Leviathans took them a little bit longer to do in game number 2 here, but they are able to take it away 16-9 on the kill.
It was the lightning rod this time around. You can't do the skull while I'm talking. I gotta focus. He was the epitome of pay attention to me, and we were talking about it, but that's kind of like Charybdis. Look, she might not be able to get too close to you and hit all her abilities consistently, but Zapman, first off, his ults did some decent damage, but he would go in his 3, comes out of his 3, goes into his ult, and spends 8 seconds distracting everybody, and then you just get Shinto and Panatom killing during the duration of it. I mean, there was also a really good pickup for Shinto a little bit later on in the far deep jungle here that he was able to chase alongside Yarkor. And of course, you have to give the shout-outs over to a beautiful, beautiful Fire Giant steal, which I think sets the Leviathans up to really start running away with things. But realistically, Zapman did exactly what we were talking about in the pre-game segment for this, that we said that Shinto or Zap do, and it is that he became the one that needed to die. He was the, not necessarily sacrificial lamb, he got a lot done in the process, but he would set up, pull the focus towards him, kill the carry, and that's what the Warriors would try to do. They did so successfully 3 times, but then somebody else, whether it was an 8-2-6 Wheelish or a 4-1-9 the Morrigan, were able to just swing through. And of course, you have to give a lot of shout-outs to Yarkor's damage. Hardcore doing 21K, did not sit back idly throughout that game, and I think that was just the perfect Leviathan-style game. That was something that they're going to be able to run.
Did well there in game 2 to play his role. 2-0 for the Camelot Kings to start off this weekend, and a fun one against the Jade Dragons, and the Atlantis Leviathans stand tall against the Oni Warriors. And Gore, the action does not stop there. Look at the slate of games we have for the rest of this weekend. Tomorrow, a great one. Jade Dragons versus the Titans will start us off, and then the Olympus Bolts versus the Solar Scarabs will round us out tomorrow. And I think the Solar Scarabs, an important one, admittedly, I think that the first one, no surprise that we're excited for that one. The Scarabs on the back end of a win against the Valkyries, a team that's gone to 3 games against a lot of the top teams, only has won 1 of them. I think a very important matchup against the Bolts.
I haven't voted for the Scarabs here. It's one of those things, I actually think that the Bolts probably, they're the likely team to win, but I think if the Scarabs are going to win anything, I have to look at the rest of their schedule just to make sure, but if they're going to win anything, which right now it's Bolts and Leviathan, so they don't necessarily have a really good follow-up from here on out. But I think this is another one to try and get their win under their belt. I just think that they've been playing really well. It's just getting some of those small issues under wraps, and they've been doing a good job improving set to set. Yeah,
and look, you look at the standings here. Top 2, very unlikely, if not impossible for the Scarabs. They only have 2 games left, so they will certainly not be catching any of those top 2 spots. Actually, we talked about that on Waiting Room this morning. Unable to reach the top 2 spots are the Solar Scarabs. They can't control groups, right. They will be in a group, but they cannot be the ones choosing those groups. Jade Dragons very much in the mix. Tartarus Titans very much in the mix.